Good evening, everybody. Want to thank everybody for coming out tonight to our sewer forum, both here in person and on Zoom, and anybody watching at home on LCTV. I am Ivan Pagasa, Commissioner, Light and Water Commissioner. To my left, Joe Knox and Melissa Hebert, Light and Water Commissioners. Corey Godfrey and David Ketchen, Assistant GM, here as well. We're going to have a presentation by Corey. It's not too long, and then we're going to open it up for questions, both from here and people on Zoom. So, Corey, would you take it away?
Thanks, Evan. All right, welcome everyone. This is our 7th public forum on the sewer project. We've been doing them about every 3 months or so to give people just an update on general progress of the project, let people ask questions, that sort of thing. So I'm going to jump right in. I'll have one slide that's sort of a background and history just to catch people up. Do a few slides on construction progress, talk about capacity a little bit of the sewer system, and then open it up for questions. All right, so just to remind everyone, the overall sewer project really has 3 major components. There's the collection system, so those are the pipes in the ground. Everybody's seen that construction this past summer. That collects the wastewater from all the properties in the sewer districts, transports it to the wastewater treatment plant, which is located at 242 King Street. If you've driven by there, you've definitely noticed that as well. The wastewater will then get treated at that location and pumped to the Littleton High School, where there is what we call an effluent recharge site. It's really a gigantic leach field, just like you might have in your backyard. Those are the 3 main components. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them in the next few slides. But just to give you a history of the project, just for anyone who doesn't remember, it's been over 20 years that the town's been talking about building a municipal sewer system. The main goal is to spur redevelopment in the Littleton Common area. There's been a series of 5 town meeting articles in the past 5 years that have authorized $36 million in borrowing for the project. There's also been $13 million in state funding that the town's received to go towards the project and help offset some of those costs. And then the 550 King Street project, which I think most people are familiar with, played a large role in making the project affordable for everybody else as well. That was all summarized at, was that town meeting in fall 2022, I think. All right, so let's jump into some of the construction progress updates real quick. So the wastewater treatment facility I mentioned at 242 King Street, the contract for that project is with Littleton Construction. They're a well-known contractor in the water and wastewater treatment plant industry. They began work back in July, clearing the site of most of the trees, began excavating the 30-foot deep hole for the underground bioreactor. It's one of the main components of the wastewater treatment plant. They've been pouring concrete ever since. It's a huge amount of concrete going in that hole. A lot of underground concrete tankage, separated by various walls, and they're creating different compartments for the treatment process. So that's been ongoing since July. They'll continue working through the winter, and construction on that project will continue until at least July of 2025, maybe a little bit longer than that. A lot of activity going on the site, but not too disruptive to the community, luckily. Let's jump on to the next one. Now, the collection system contract, that's Rivoli Construction has that. That's the one that's a little more disruptive. It's been in the main road. A lot of that work was done at night over the summer. And then some of the town roads like Russell Street was done during the daytime. At this point, Rivoli has shut down for the winter. It's difficult to do that kind of work in the winter, so they'll be back in late March, early April to continue on with that. So far the work on King Street from the high school to Russell Street, that's complete. All of Russell Street is complete. Virtually all of Stevens Street is complete, and all of Shattuck Street is complete. And they'll be back in the spring to do final paving on those roads. As I mentioned, they stopped work from Christmas until spring, and they'll continue on in April. That will most likely go until November of next year. And that project should pretty much wrap it. So just one more construction season there. And a quick update on the effluent recharge project. That's the giant leach field at the Littleton High School. That was a quick project that was completed over the course of about 3 months this past summer. It's 100% complete at this point. The high school soccer fields where the leach field was installed have had new sod installed and will be ready for high school sports in the spring. All right, so here we're just gonna cover the capacity a little. Give you a quick summary of each of those 3 main components I talked about. The collection system and the treatment plant, both of those have a design capacity of 530,000 gallons per day. The effluent recharge site with the leaching field has a permitted capacity of 241,000 gallons per day. The existing properties in the service area, so essentially the Littleton Common area, currently only generate about 57,000 gallons per day of wastewater. So that difference there between what we're building the system for and what the current flows are intended for future growth. And any proposed project that's received a permit from the planning board to proceed has had the opportunity to reserve capacity. So there's currently almost 157,000 gallons per day of capacity reserved for those already permitted projects. And that brings us up pretty close to the permitted value of 241,000 gallons per day at the high school leach field. Next slide. So because we're getting close to the capacity of that permitted leach field, we engaged with Weston and Sampson engineers this past September, just after we started construction on all the other pieces, to have them evaluate the feasibility of increasing the permitted discharge at the high school, and to also start exploring additional leaching field locations throughout town, so that we can, over time, as the common grows and as the system takes on more flow, we'll be able to find additional discharge locations for that flow. So their preliminary evaluation's already been completed. The next steps are really to go out and kind of ground truth some of the evaluation they've done. A lot of it was just based on GIS mapping and that sort of thing for the first steps. Next step is to go out and visit some of these properties that look like they have high potential for an additional leaching field location, do some soil borings in those locations, and also to begin the process of re-rating the leach field at the high school to increase the permitted capacity there. So that capacity, the permit is from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. The whole process you go through to get a discharge site permitted involves a lot of modeling of what everybody thinks that location can take as far as putting treated wastewater effluent into the ground without it breaking out to the surface. That's what everybody wants to avoid. So before you're actually putting water in the ground, you use a model to estimate how much you can put in the ground. So that's what was done when we originally permitted it. What we're going to be doing for the next several months here is designing and conducting an infiltration test. Now that that leach field's been built, we'll actually start to put water into the ground, collect real data. Well, we have monitoring wells all around the area. So as we discharge water into the ground there, we can measure the water levels in all of the monitoring wells in the area, see what the impact is, use that data to recalibrate the groundwater model, make it more precise, more accurate, go through the permitting process with Mass DEP again to have that capacity increased from the 241,000 gallons per day to something that we're expecting to be closer to 300,000 gallons per day. So that's close to 60,000 gallons per day additional capacity that we expect to have available. Probably take a little over 2 years to get through that process. It takes a little bit of time with the state. And then at that point, there'll be that much additional capacity available to the customers in the common as they continue to develop their ideas and plans to redevelop their properties. That is pretty much all I had for the presentation. We're primarily here tonight to answer questions that you all might have, so we'll open it up to the floor now.
Yeah, and all I'd ask is if people can identify themselves and their address so that Sarah can capture that. And we'll start here. Is there anybody on Zoom?
There's a few people on Zoom, so if you are on Zoom and you do have a question, please use the Q&A feature on Zoom. And we'll get your questions read
Okay.
and answered.
All right, we'll start here in the room, and then we'll alternate between here and Zoom. Who's going first? Michael.
You really want it?
Absolutely.
Couple things. And one of them is really trivial, but it certainly makes me wonder the powers of observation. So the traffic lines on King Street, right? And I sent out something a month ago. Now, all you guys have traveled up and down King Street, right? And so the contractor put down some temporary lines, looked like a drunken guy in a rowboat pushing them down. And he did the first 100 yards, right? Now, nothing's been done since. Trivial, but the contractor, I believe, in his contract is obligated to replace those traffic lines. And so you and all these other guys have driven down King Street and observed the lack of these traffic lines. A month ago, at least I sent an email from Cranky Guy, and obviously nothing's been done. Why can't the contractor fulfill his little obligation? And they test you, you're a bunch of intelligent guys up there. The contractor tests you. They want to see what I can do above ground, and they don't care. What am I gonna do below ground? We go back to that. The other thing is, I noticed that, that Sherpia or Shapa Construction was in town on Shattuck Street. A couple of days this week, before Christmas, they were there with a compressor. Are they working for Ravioli? Are they working for, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Are they working for Ravioli or are they working for, what do you call it? The design engineer, and are they testing these lines? What were they doing?
Yeah, they were doing pressure testing on the lines in the.
And they
manhole.
came back a couple of times.
Yeah,
Is
there's a
there
lot
anything
to,
there?
no, there's a lot to test, so they're.
And who are they working for?
I mean, Bervoli's paying them, but our engineering inspector is there to
Okay.
witness all the
And-
testing.
If you can go back to that capacity, developer comes into town with a boatload of money, right? And all of a sudden, we're gonna put the sewer system in, and then we find out that, it's under design. The leaching field is under design, or under capacity.
No, don't say under the
Okay,
design.
under capacity.
You gotta remember that the state allows us a permit for
Right.
discharge, all right, and they're very conservative. So, they're giving us, 241,000. We feel that it actually can handle more than that, but it's a process with the state.
I understand.
Back and forth.
What happens when you find out that it doesn't? I'm just being speculative.
No, I think with our engineering, with our engineers, we feel confident that we're gonna increase that capacity. That the permanent capacity that what we have today from the state. You gotta understand, it's a new system. You're aware, we don't, it's not like, the analogy I use is on the water side, if we want to add water service down the road. We already have existing data. We have information. We know what the impacts are. Sewer system is all brand new. So working with the state, the permit level, they're conservative, until we have data. And there's modeling data and then there's real world data.
Real world.
And we're moving into that real world phase where we're gonna be pushing water into that leach
And
field.
a test,
Yeah, to refine the model
okay?
and then go back to the state, say, hey, here's the engineering. It says X, now we want more capacity.
And what if they deny you that?
That's where the second piece comes in that I mentioned, where we're looking at additional
Right,
locations. in
yeah.
town.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be an added cost to, turned over to the rate, I mean, the lucky ones, right, that are connected to the sewers, correct? So if you're gonna buy a piece of property, you gotta pipe it, you gotta, develop it and everything else, and that's gonna be passed on to the consumer.
Right, to the ratepayers, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But what happened to the traffic lights? Small items. What happened?
I agree.
No, I
agree
mean,
with that, yeah. Yeah.
How many times, sorry, the point, how many times have you driven down King Street, and not, and seen that those lines aren't there? What would have it taken to hold that contract?
Right.
And I still have my, concerns about what was done. We're all gonna figure this out in 3 or 4 years. But I get tested every day as a contractor, right? And I test the client as a contractor, not in an adversarial way, but I test them, what's gonna happen. When the guy does something that you can see and he just blatantly doesn't do it, what else is he doing that you can't see? Well, but, end of story.
Yeah. I think we'll, Dave, you'll handle tomorrow.
Certainly.
Another,
Certainly, we'll push them again.
And they should be putting down real lines that look like lines, not that
Yeah.
some guy,
Yeah.
just took some tape and,
Absolutely.
if somebody has a head-on collision, right, you can have all the signs that say you pass at your own risk under construction. You've sort of been put on notice here, right? And they don't paint those lines just because they got a few gallons of, the state doesn't paint the lines in the road because they got some extra yellow paint, right? There's a purpose for it.
right.
Good point.
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, Gary Wilson, Lawrence Lane. I actually have two questions. One regarding current capacity and those that already paid their 10% betterments.
Mhm.
So there's every individual that's signed up and has paid the 10% betterments are getting the requested our use paid capacity.
Yep.
Requested, okay.
That's right.
Okay, and then secondly, we haven't talked really about expanding. Obviously, in the previous meeting, we talked about future expansion, trying to make sure that we not only cover the common, but eventually, obviously, the town itself. But where are we as far as looking at other properties? Are we any closer than we were, I guess, when this started?
As far as other properties for
Discharge.
discharge, yeah.
Which is-
Yeah, no,
We have 500,000 capacity right now within the system itself. That can withstand another 500,000 discharge, is that correct? Where we have a system that can handle it, but we don't have the discharge.
Right, we have 300, potentially 300 at the high school, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
The system
treatment, the
itself
treatment
can-
can take 500, the pipes can take 500, so there's an extra 200 they can be. At least.
Yeah, yeah, and we are further along than last time. Since September, we've done a lot of work with the engineering firm. They identified a list of 30 potential properties that could be looked at. And then we went through, that was all just based on what they know, just the engineering side. And then we went through that with them and identified 6 really realistic properties to explore further. And we'll be looking to go out over the next few months to start doing soil borings and test pits and that sort of thing to confirm the soil conditions. And then we'll take it the next step from there and begin the process of if it's a property that we need to acquire or if it's already a town property. I think half of them are already town properties, the other half are private. And we'll start that process, those conversations, and then eventually move into permitting with the state.
If he's, 2 hats here. One, I'm a planning board. And so is there any coordination between anyone, with your engineer and these additional sites? That we're considering development proposals, we will be doing a site that has been mentioned as a potential leach field site. How are we communicating?
Yeah, that would be, those conversations would be happening in the coming weeks. We just got the preliminary evaluation from the engineer last week. Just had a meeting with them today to go through it and narrow that list down to 6 or so. So that we'll start coordinating with the appropriate parties for each of those properties.
So my other hat is a resident of the common, and my neighbor here also. We're in Robinson Road, right? Where it goes into the Gray Road. Can we get sewer? How do we do it? I guess I haven't paid much attention. We were originally on the catchment area, and then we were taken off of it, and so I sort of didn't paid attention to the process. Can you go over or the process for putting your hand up to get service?
Yeah, so what we're currently building, we're calling phase 1A. It's sort of a scaled back version of the phase 1 that was what you're probably referring to, that was originally presented a couple of years ago. We had to scale back the size of the initial construction to lower the costs. It's a $50 million project as it stands right now. It would have been much more had we built out the entire system at the time. So that's why I got scaled back. People that want to, you're already in the district, so that makes it easier in the future. Essentially, when there's more capacity available, that's when we'll begin asking who else wants to connect.
So what can we do now to the people on my street to put our hands up? I mean, you talked about a 10% betterment. I don't know what that.
Yeah, that just went to everyone who's currently going to be connected as part of this phase 1A. So if you didn't get
So we're not eligible right now,
right,
but it's not open.
correct.
Once we do have that additional capacity, there will be a reservation procedure.
The other thing I just want to say as a resident, a long time resident, I'm impressed that this is being accomplished. It's been a long time. It's a huge project. It taxes, a lot of decision-making, politics, everything. So congratulations at the Walmart.
Thank you.
Do you want to go to Zoom? Is there anybody?
We don't have any questions on
Okay.
Zoom.
Think
Peter?
A couple of questions. If you go through, what are you saying, 500,000 gallons a day? That's the capacity of your aiming for.
Of the
Right
plant.
now, we're at 300, and we're looking for 200,000 more. Place to send the refuge. What's, how much do our wells put out a day?
They can put out almost 2.5 million gallons a day.
So we have no water supply issue right now.
No,
What about when we get 1,000 units sitting up at the center of town? That's a lot of water.
it's a good amount of water, not enough to cause a problem on the water side. We're estimating about 150,000 gallons a day from that development of additional water being used and sewer being generated.
Right, earlier you said the end user, when the gentleman asked you something about a 10% payment, those are the ones that are already permitted to tie into town water now. And as long as they.
Township,
This,
yeah,
the sewer now,
yep.
And they've already paid their 10%, what are the people that I wasn't sure and hadn't paid the 10%, are they still permitted to tie in?
Everyone who's physically being connected as part of this phase was assessed that betterment fee, and it goes on their property tax bill. They have to pay it,
Yeah.
whether it's now or later.
Right. Now the end user is also every single resident in Littleton that has a child, or, I mean, we're the end user. I get used at the high school, middle school, grade school, library, all those things. So in reality, we're the end user being us is covering the active 1,000 units going up in the center of town also, correct?
No, they're paying their share.
How is it rated differently for a commercial entity? Because that will all be commercial, correct?
Right.
What's the cost difference between a residential entity and a commercial entity?
They're all
Gallon.
treated the same essentially.
Why? Someone's making money and some of us are paying money.
Not the same. It's split up differently than you would by residential or commercial. It's based on REU size.
Yeah, based on the amount of wastewater they're generating. So the more you generate, the more you pay. So a large development pays a lot more than a single family.
Well, no, we still pay the same amount that with one guy that only flushes his toilet twice a day. Pay the same number per gallon, correct? Is that how you're gonna do it, by gallons?
The usage, when we have the system online, people are getting monthly sewer bills. It'd be the cost per gallon for the actual usage.
Right.
The betterment fees are based on essentially the impact of that property to the sewer system. So the money we're talking about right now.
We're paying twice.
Depends on the size of the development.
Well, once, all right, but again, if I have a, can't think of a private, somebody live Badger's funeral home. And they put 50 gallons into the sewage system. And they pay $1 a gallon, so they pay $50, yes?
For the usage.
You're talking usage versus betterment, two different
Usage,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, usage, right.
And now we take a commercial entity like Sal's gonna be putting in there and he goes through 1,000 gallons a day. He pays $1,000, yes? So he's paying the same rate
For the usage, yes.
for the usage that a resident, even though I call it Badger's Funeral Home, which is a business entity. Why should a resident pay the same rate where they're paying the taxes? Just, and don't get me wrong, I know Sal's gonna pay his taxes too. But if you do the math on what it costs to educate a kid, put it in school, how much per child, how many of those are gonna be getting, you know, those units up, they're gonna bring into the town. I don't think it's a fair entity or a fair assessment to charge Badgers, the residents, and the commercial entity the same price per gallon. I think the commercial entity should pay more per gallon. That's my opinion.
Certainly something to explore. We are working on rate structure right now, so that's not.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's a good point. The rate hasn't even been developed
We
yet.
haven't
We're still
developed
2
it
years
yet.
away from.
That's a hell of a thing to figure out at the end, how much you're gonna charge somebody who's signing up for it. How would Badger like to pay $2 a gallon when, yeah, we were thinking maybe $1, and now it's $2. You see my dilemma here?
Well, yes, we do, but this rate structure has been, worked on since the beginning. It'll be finalized as the project moves on. We need no real cost, we need no real operational cost. And we need all of that information to figure out what the rate's actually gonna be, so that's.
I don't go buy a new truck unless I know I can afford to pay for it. I don't just. Yeah, we'll figure out later.
Yeah, the construction's paid for by the
Yeah.
betterments. The usage doesn't pay for the construction. It pays for the operational costs, the
Operation,
staff,
post-
chemicals,
post-construction.
electricity,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Right.
So none of that's happening.
Operational.
We have estimates for it, of course.
And anyone who's not tied in is not paying a better.
Correct.
Right.
And
Other than
the
the tax.
betterments are made by the residents because the high school, the middle school, the grade school, all those. So in other words, my taxes went up as part of this betterment, right? I'm paying the betterment, aren't I?
I don't know that they did.
That's a question for the select board.
Oh, I have too many hats in your head.
Can you enlighten me? So the betterment is to join the club, right?
Right,
And that's X amount of dollars.
Yep.
And that's the REUs. And so your house has got 1 REU, your restaurant's got 4 REUs or whatever it's got,
whatever, right,
whatever it had. Then, once you go operational, you're gonna ask for a meter reading, right? And for every gallon that goes down the pipe.
Yeah.
You're gonna get, there'll be a charge, correct?
right.
And do we know what that charge is going to be?
We've done estimations
Yeah.
right now, but it's not finalized yet.
And so the guy with the lawn sprinklers also, he'll have a separate meter?
No,
No,
he'll pay this, he'll pay,
water in, not water out?
Yep.
So if I get a lawn sprinkler, I'm gonna pay, and it uses 5 gallons a day and, every other day, odd day, whatever. So I'm paying for that also, as if we're going in the sewer system.
that's the way it's set up right now.
That's
In another home I own, we have a separate water meter for the, what do you call it, for the sprinkler
For the
system.
sprinklers, yeah.
And we send a reading at the end of the year, and we don't pay the sewer, charge on that.
On the, yeah,
I don't think it's fair that, what about the farm? Well, there's no farm, but
it's something that, yeah, we can look at. With the way things are headed and notwithstanding this past year, but water conservation on the water side, I'll put my water hat on. Water conservation is critical, and we would rather you not use sprinklers.
I mind been off for 2 years.
Yeah, even last year with all the rain?
No, off.
Oh, off, all right, okay, yeah, exactly. So we're heading towards that more conservation.
You wash your car. I'm just being facetious, but,
No, I understand, but
and do you have a gallon, a rate, or you don't wanna spill the beans yet?
it's not finalized yet, so we're still working it and gathering data. We really need to understand the operational costs what it's gonna take, the chemicals, et cetera. It's no different than on the water side. What it takes to operate the water department, it's the same scenario.
Yeah, I'll just say the rate will reflect the operating costs. So we know the operating costs for the system will be about $800,000 to $900,000 a year. Essentially, at its most basic level, all you do is take that and divide it by the number of gallons that you're selling, and then essentially that's the rate. It's a little more fancy than that, but that's how we arrive at it.
So everybody who's paid in the 10% earlier has full use of the sewer treatment system. They're not regulated. You only get 100 gallons and you only get 25. You get whatever you dump into
Right.
that system, you get it. So I have a 1-bedroom house. I want to build oh, no, I think we can go up 70 feet high now. So is that right? A building, so I can put 7 floors on it. So I can put 25-bedroom house on one lot, and you're gonna take all my stuff.
No,
Well, you have to get that permitted. This is no different than, let's say, a project comes into town, okay? And for instance, at the IBM property, there was the discussion of a company moving in there that had certain water requirements and electrical requirements. It's no different. A project comes in, LELWD is involved because they have requirements. We need X amount of water, we need X amount of power, can you supply it? Same thing, you're gonna go build a 10-story building, and you're gonna go to the planning board engages LELWD for review of the plans. Can we supply what you need?
So if I build my 7 because it's 10 feet per floor, not 10. Doing math. So I build a 7 building, and before that Sal gets in there, and you can hold my capacity, can't you? So why would they deny it?
well,
If
projects
I get
about,
my 7-story building in and all my bedrooms in, before anybody else goes in, you can supply me, right?
no, there's been projects that have already been approved by the planning board that have already requested capacity, so
And how much are they using them?
that was on one of those previous sites, 156,000 gallons per day total,
100,
156,000.
and the total capacity now is 300,000, but you said you're projecting.
We're projecting to get to 300,000.
Now it is what, 146,000?
Well, less, because there's already 57,000 gallons of usage right now,
So now
so,
down to 100?
yeah.
So
Or a
there's
little
only
less.
100,000.
But understand, like the common itself is about, what, 40,000?
So now we're down
If we
to.
take out the municipal
Yeah,
buildings,
take a look at this.
the common is around 40,000. And, with the extra capacity that we're looking to get permitted through the state, we could double that. We can go 40 to 80 in the common. So that's significant.
Did the math.
We want
157,000.
Yeah.
So they're already designated to somebody else. It's not built yet. Yes?
Right, that's permitted and approved.
Make it easy, 160,000. Even numbers. The downtown area is, you said that's 80,000?
40,000.
40,000, so now we're at 200,000, yes?
Mhm.
How much is the municipalities that we own now we're running?
Is that 17? 20?
Yes.
Only
17,000.
17,000 between the high school, the middle school,
Yep.
everything? Okay, so we're at what, 217? And everybody that's still left in the common area are gonna take up whatever they can take up.
Yeah, which is a good amount.
So there's no reason for me not to be able to build my 7-story high building.
Talk to the planning board.
I don't get there. I don't have that much money.
Chuck,
Chuck Coast, member of the select board, member of the sewer working group for the past several years. I think what Mr. Scott's missing is if he had a house at 125 Main Street, 125 Main Street was included and paid the betterment. His betterment was based upon the number of RUs that were assigned to that property based upon water usage at that residence, based on the use of that property when the betterments were assigned, all based on Mass General law. That's how the calculations were made. And for someone to want to go to the planning board and put 7 townhouses in there or something like that, they would have to get approval from the planning board, and then it has to go back and get additional betterment for the, get additional capacity at that property. So just because you're in the district, doesn't mean you can flush or run as much as you want. You can't put 7 bathrooms in, and that, it's basically going to be pre-existing. use
And
of
the
that.
REU that you're granted at the time, right?
How did you come up with the REUs to begin with?
Yeah, it's just,
Pardon?
yeah,
Previous
Yes.
use?
based on current use, yeah, exactly, because that's what'll be
And we
connected.
just went through 2 years of COVID where there wasn't a lot of business running through a lot of places. I know that banks on the board flush the toilet once a day. So he uses 80 gallons in a month. And is that all he gets to use when it comes? His
Yes.
REUs is 80 gallons?
It's based on a 5-year average, so it's not just the COVID years, it's,
But what if your system right now handles, per se, a 4-bedroom system, what's that, 440 gallons a day?
Yeah.
But that's what your system now carries. I don't always, no, I have a 7-bedroom septic system and there's only me and one other person living in my house, so I'm not using my capacity. Doesn't mean that I can't use it.
Right.
If I needed it. So how do you subject somebody who has the availability to more now and then you're gonna reduce them?
no, nobody's being reduced. That's why we left some buffer in there. So we're estimating your REUs and hence your betterment based on measured water use over the past 5 years. If you go over that measured water use in a year, there's no consequence to,
Right.
you know.
It reminds me of the story of, what was that one we had this morning? Potential and realistic? That. I'll tell you later.
Dave, is there anybody on the Zoom?
No,
those
are no questions.
Okay.
So I saw at a planning board meeting, I don't know, in the fall, maybe between Christmas and November, Sal's now proposing a hotel. Are you aware of this?
I
mean,
He has not-
they came in and
doesn't have
proposed
a
a hotel.
specific proposal. He said, what do you think? And we go, let's see the proposal. And that's all, that's how far it's come, but he sounds like he's very interested.
It is kind of, and no offense to you, but to watch that particular meeting, it's as if the chairman is answering the questions or finishing the sentences of Sal's guy. You can take that for whatever you want to be, but, so now we're gonna put in a hotel. What would be the REUs for a 100-room hotel?
He has reserved capacity
He
of
does?
of so many thousands of gallons, and that's what he has.
Okay.
All right, so if he
If you-
comes to the planning board and he alters his design, he has to fit in with that reserved capacity for 550 King. Understand, he came to our board and wanted more capacity. He did not get
Okay,
what he asked for.
He's not happy with us. That makes
Yeah.
you happy.
All
what
right,
happened to the storage treatment plant, the IBM building itself? What happened to that?
Yes, it's still there right now, but they would have to do some significant upgrades and re-permit with the state in order to do
But
that,
that's defunct.
essentially.
And it's not part of the system, I understand. but
No,
it's not.
no.
The
Not on
IBM
our
building
own.
itself.
It's unfortunately located.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Yes, he requested a certain amount of capacity at 550. He didn't get it. And he requested capacity for 410 Great Road across the street. And he didn't get anything for 410. He got
Which
zero.
one's 410?
The mill,
building?
the mill, yeah.
So
So
that's not in the system?
no. No, he got no capacity for that.
So you're at total capacity with the design you have. Pretty much, reserved.
Close to it, yeah.
All right.
With some buffer, yeah.
Yeah, with some buffer, permitted what the state is
Right.
giving us as a permit,
Full permit.
but not necessarily what the discharge site will ultimately be able to handle.
So how does he develop 450,
410,
410? It's up to him.
it's a question, yeah, you can ask him. He's gonna have to come in front of the planning board and he's gonna have to present a plan.
I mean, for the effluent, how does he handle that? Or you can't,
Yeah, that's up to him. That's up to him. He's,
interesting.
So if you're at capacity now, and the whole thing, this meeting is to get more capacity. Well, how long do you think that'll take?
We talked about that, I think it came in a little bit late, so at the
Yeah,
high school, we finished over this past summer building the giant leach field at the high school, the discharge site. We're gonna re-permit that with the state, we're hopeful that we can get from the existing 241,000 gallon per day permit up to 300,000. Probably take 2 to 2.5 years to do that process. So that's only shortly after the whole system actually becomes available for use, we still have another 1.5 years of construction.
All right, so let's say like, I wanna tie 531 King Street. How long do I have to wait for it to do that? To do, I'd say, 15 units. Times 2 bedroom. 110 gallons a day. Per day. How long would they have to wait? Something like that?
Yeah, until we get that extra capacity, so 2 to 2.5 years probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna go up 2A, you're gonna resurface the road. And then come back, and laterals in, service all this property.
No, so the properties that have already been assessed the betterment fee and that are being connected as part of this phase, the laterals are being run as we go to the property line, and then the stubs left at the property line.
Yeah.
So we don't have to dig up the road again. It's
All right,
just,
so 5 years from now, when I can tie in, I gotta dig the road up.
yeah, so you're talking about 531 King?
Yeah.
So,
Not just
Yes.
531, I'm just using that for example.
Yeah.
But you got people like can tie in now, people can't. So you got a main line going up the street. It's all nice to resurface. Now we gotta put laterals to different properties.
I mean, for the most part,
Sidewalks.
wherever we're putting sewer main right now, there's a lateral to the private property line. The only place where there's exceptions to that would be if it's not just a property, but like a cul-de-sac, that's what I think you're talking about, a whole separate road.
No, well, yeah,
Yeah,
that's just one example.
yeah.
So when that line goes up King Street to service 550. I'm gonna have a lateral line that goes over to 531.
I'd have to look at the plans to see if we can look at that afterwards, but
Sometimes there's a moratorium on getting into the.
Right.
yeah.
Right. Mark?
So you said there's 240,000 capacity roughly now, and 220 is reserved effectively, right? So you have, you're not taking more capacity right now. You're planning in the next 2.5 years to go to 300, and you have the capacity to go to another 200 on your current. My question is, when is there a timeline that's being developed to when you'll take it to 300? When you will release more capacity, when you'll take it to 500, when you release its more capacity? And when you release more capacity, will it be within the existing district, or is there a plan to go to phase 2, phase 1B, 1C, whatever, where you're going to take that extra, let's just say the extra 200,000 gallons of capacity? What, is there a schedule? And, or when will there be a schedule for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the schedule is primarily what I've talked about with the permitting timeline for the high school, which is 2 to 2.5 years to get up to the 300,000. And then as far as finding additional sites I mean, we could put together what we think a schedule is going to be. There's a lot of variables there as far as acquiring land.
Right, but that's a schedule, well, there's one schedule is when you're building out the system, and the other is the schedule when you're building out your capacity, and the other is when you're building out your users.
Mhm.
Right, so those, I haven't heard anything saying like when, like, Peter said, or Ivan said that you could take the capacity of the common from 40,000 to 80, but there's no schedule of when you would do that you've mentioned, so I'm asking if that's also being planned for in the schedule.
So Mark, I will say that, well, first off, the commissioners have committed that the users in the common and the people in the common that will need additional capacity will be next in line. That's one thing that has been committed. After that, we did do a needs assessment where different locations in town were identified as needing sewer. So that's something that would be taken into account at that time. And then the other thing you need is projects ready in hand to pay for that. So it will be a fluid discussion, but that's sort of our game plan on that.
Right, I think you just need a plan to when you have a schedule so that you can start vetting that schedule and communicate.
Yep, yeah,
Like,
that's
if
fair.
410 wants capacity, right, and needs capacity, then they need to be able to become and say, we are wanting on this schedule, or, you know, when Banks wants to do something different, they need to know when they can come and ask, and that schedule just needs to be.
I agree, and that needs to be a community
You
decision.
know, who's next in line? Who's first? I mean, where is all our sewage from the high schools, just going to the high school? That's the middle school, the library, the police station, the fire station,
Existing right now.
existing right now, are going to the high school present. Correct? And that's working great right now. There's no issues. You just put a new field in there, correct?
Right.
How many gallons a day does that handle right now all by itself for doing nothing?
So the new.
The high school.
The new,
Not in
the
the
new
use
leach field,
Well, the old one was going pretty good, right?
The old one's still active.
Okay,
The
so
new
how
one's
many gallons does that take a day?
Yeah, the old one's permitted for 17,000 gallons a day. It takes pretty close to that already from the existing town buildings.
Okay, and the new field you put in is gonna be 200,000?
it's
41.
241 permitted right now that we're hoping to bring up to 300.
Okay. That in itself would have just, what you put in just at the high school, handling the fluid that's going into it now. That would have handled the entire downtown area, less Sapoli's and the other thing, correct? Just that alone would handle the entire downtown area, yes?
The new leach field,
Yes.
yes.
So we wouldn't need a giant treatment plant if we just use the high school.
Well,
Well,
Yeah.
if we had done
Entire
that,
but then, yeah.
But, well, am I
No,
right
no,
or
no,
wrong?
no, but then you're limiting sewer to just that common area. That's it.
The number was, wait a minute, the number was 241,000 gallons, yes?
Yeah.
The downtown area, you said is 80,000.
No,
It will be, it's 40 now, it can take 80.
no,
Right now, that it's 17,000, that the town itself, the schools, everything the town is sending down there a day is 17,000, correct? What's 17 from 200? 183? And the whole downtown area takes up 80,000, we still have 100,000 left. I don't know why we needed some of this other stuff at the.
The plant at the high school can't handle the 200,000.
right. That's the plan of the high school is on its last legs.
So what would it take to upgrade the plant at the high school?
Oh,
we can't upgrade
you
it.
can't upgrade it.
It's not, it's a quarter the size of this room.
Pardon?
It's a quarter of the size of this room. It can't be upgraded to anything more than what it is.
Yeah.
It's.
We looked at
it's a dead-
pricing on that early on in our design and determined that was not a logical decision.
No.
And moving the plant off the high school property was.
And so the last part of my idiocy is many years ago when you were discussing who was gonna tie in, what it was gonna cost them, and it was always the end user is gonna do this. Not like the end user is gonna pay. And at the time, I thought it was like 16 or 18 million dollars. And the end user primarily are the residents because we're paying for the high school, the middle school, everything that ties into it that is municipality. And then whoever's at the common area that wants to tie in. That was the end user we're at. Was it right, 16, 19 million dollars? At the very beginning, it was, does that sound familiar?
26, maybe 25.
Well, I was,
Yeah.
I thought it was, so now where are we now? What's the total cost now
50
for all that we're doing now? How much is it?
million.
50, double. And we double it all just so that we can have 1,000 units in the center of town?
No, so the initial plan you're talking about was was planning on sewering way more surfaces area, the entire common, Goldsmith Street was down it.
Right.
After, and that was very early on, I think, when the project was initially out of the select board years and years ago. After we did this needs assessment and more studies, more engineering, looking at cost estimates, we quickly realized that wasn't really that realistic. And then COVID hit and that skyrocketed prices as well. So those were two factors that weren't initially vetted at the
So
beginning.
COVID actually was good for the economy.
That's a different,
Two-thirds of the build out is being paid by 5 King Street development.
yeah, that was a huge.
We wouldn't be at this point if, before we didn't buy 5 King Street.
Correct.
We probably just walk all short.
Yes, that changed everything too, because in the initial design, IBM was not obviously a part of it.
Right.
So if it isn't there, it isn't a cost. So what difference does it make whether he pays his fair share or not? We don't really need him. And IBM was still paying the taxes with nobody in the building, correct? It's a
So-
win-win as far as I can
An
tell.
RAU right now is around $40,000 per RAU. If 550 King Street wasn't in the mix, it skyrocketed to like 160,000, somewhere around that cost. So
Yeah,
it
so
just
By adding
wasn't,
a larger project, you actually brought the cost down.
yes,
Correct.
that was the entire goal of that.
I didn't do the math in that respect. Still, what it was costing me. Like, I know I've gone up, I think, 800% in the last 15 or 18 years, I guess. No,
Yes,
So, the project at 336 King Street, Kuchkowski project, we call it. They're tied into the system. Are they tied into the new or the existing?
Well, both really, I mean, they're
Now,
tying
is that gonna put you guys in jeopardy of going over that 17,000 gallons? That of the existing system by adding them to it?
no, because they're,
The Dr. G property? Yes,
no, because it's a small amount of usage from that property. So,
27 units.
yeah, no, we know.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like it's about 2,700 gallons a day. So it fits within the current permit. It's pushing it up towards the top of it, but they're still not even online there. Who knows when they will be? It might be a year from now, and then we'll be within months of, or within 6 months or so of the new system being online. But
Those included in the calculations.
yeah,
So now my next question is, as you guys are applying your rates. So what you're telling us is, if I'm outside watering my tomatoes, I'm paying sewer rates. Or I'm feeding or filling my horse troughs, I'm paying sewer rates on that water. Or even topping off my pool, we're gonna pay sewer rates on that water. Why haven't we come up with a system where, like other towns, either use 2 meters or the rates are assessed on off-season use, like winter usage, things like that, to come up with the rates, instead of charging people to wash their car, they're paying sewer rates. Or, God forbid, from what I'm hearing up there, water their lawn, they're gonna be paying sewer rates. So now that we're worried about conservation and watering lawns, it's starting to get me thinking, are we worried about our water capacity and that the town has enough water?
no, the water conservation, a lot of that comes from Mass DEP. So on the water side, we have permits for
Yeah.
withdrawal water, and DEP puts conditions on those permits. And they're really pushing conservation the past several years, and they'll continue to push it going forward. So.
it's not gonna go the other way.
Right.
It's getting more conservative from the state.
So we have targets we have to meet on the water side with our DEP permit. And DEP really frowns upon having what you're talking about, they call deduct meters, where you have a second meter in there to meter any outdoor water use, and then you deduct that from the main meter to calculate the sewer bill. A lot of older communities have that kind of system in place. Pretty much nobody's doing that anymore as far as when they're building new systems, because it's really frowned upon by DEP. They don't want to see that because they want you to be paying more if you're going to be using outdoor water use. That's part of their
They
conservation.
want you to pay more, or they want you to pay less.
They want you to conserve. The state wants you to conserve.
So if he has a well on his property, and it's, what if it's close to the town wells or whatever, and it goes down, he's got an artesian, it's in the same aquifer perhaps as what you guys draw from, are you gonna go after it as well?
No.
Not now,
No,
well, the state,
we will, but if we're in a drought situation, Peter, we don't want people doing outdoor watering.
yeah, I know,
Okay,
but lots of
all right,
people, I don't
so-
want people driving in the fast lane.
Well,
with
let
a
me,
plow.
let me finish, okay? People with private wells, and I have these discussions, I have friends with private wells, and I have these discussions with them all the time. You're taking water from the aquifer. All right, so it's, as us as a community, we have to be thinking together on this. If we have a serious drought condition like we did a couple years ago, where it wasn't pretty. We need people conserving, even people with private wells.
In the special town meeting, there was a special announcement that the lucky seller of 242 King Street donated $200,000 to the town. And the question came up that they wanted to put in pickleball courts, tennis courts or something. And why couldn't that 200,000? The response from somebody on the board somebody up there said that the $200,000 was donated and controlled by the Light and Water Commission. Is that true?
No, so the money was donated and went into CPC funds, the community preservation funds. For use for active recreation, the Park and Rec, that's the Park and Recreation bucket. But when Park and Rec comes up with a project that they want to utilize that money, they will ask our board, the Light and Water Commissioners, to approve it. And we will, approve that use of that fund, but the money is residing in CPC.
Right, I understand. You don't have it in the,
But we're not dictating the project. Park and Rec will dictate the project.
but you have to approve the project.
Yeah, but we're,
Have they applied for any of that money?
no, not yet.
Interesting.
But we are gonna get those lines.
Did you overpay for 242 King Street? Like double, what it was appraised?
Professional appraisal.
It was who?
We had a professional appraisal done.
Yeah.
So that's the price.
As opposed to what the rest of us are appraised at?
National Law, Chapter 30B dictates what we can and can't pay for a property. Now we follow that to the T.
And just so you know, we are renting back the house to the contractors. And we took line item dollars off of the contractors' price for mobile trailers and whatnot.
Really?
And they're paying, yeah, why not, right?
Hmm.
So
What'd you get?
I don't know the exact figure,
Look, you're gonna have fun.
but that's creativity, wouldn't you say, Peter? That's,
Very, very nice.
yeah,
Who
yeah.
forgot to turn the water off up at the
that's not our
Yeah.
property. That's not our property.
your water?
It's not our property.
Hmm. That was a great move.
Anybody on Zoom?
No.
Okay. With questions or anybody else?
I got another question.
Sure.
On the water side,
Yep,
when I go to my shop usually every day up on Wickham Ave, I go by the new plant.
yep.
And I see a big fire hose coming out of the building and it's dumping tons of water every day into what's going on? Why is it now, and we're talking about water conservation and I
Yeah.
see all this water
Yeah.
running in there.
Yeah.
What's the process?
Yeah, so
Is
there's,
the plant not working?
no, it's
No,
working.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, everything's working correctly. So there's a lot going on inside that building, but one of the big pieces is the carbon filters that are removing the PFAS. Those really the main reason for building that plant. So there's 4 really large carbon filters in there. And the carbon media that goes inside there it looks like charcoal essentially. It goes inside of there. It needs to be washed or rinsed for a long period of time with a lot of water in order to get all of the fine particulate matter out of there. So that's what that process is. That's what we've been doing. It's almost done now. There'll probably only be a couple more days of that. It'll be finished.
It's no different, like if you have a fridge at home as a water filter.
Sure.
And you put in the new filter, they tell you to run it for a little bit, flush it out before you start drinking the water.
So that's not a permanent thing that we're gonna see?
No. No. And that was the last piece. That was the PFAS piece. It was first the iron, the manganese filtration. There was 3 phases of filtration that were turned on. PFAS was the last one.
Doesn't the state dictate what our PFAS numbers are?
Mhm.
Are we knocking on their door now?
Yeah, but there's no PFAS at all.
There's no- yeah.
Out of that plant. It's removing all of it.
Yeah,
Beaverbrook is our next
I'm
plant.
sorry?
Our Beaverbrook plant is our next plant to tackle. Which already has minimal PFAS, but that's our next treatment plant to tackle.
Thank you. This one on Hartwell.
No, it's actually
Right on
right
Green Road,
right
across the street here.
behind the Dover settlement.
And the gun. Yes, with all the guns all the time.
Yeah, you hear it right there.
anybody else?
Any update on the Cobwell site? Is that coming on or what's going on there?
Yeah.
We continue to make slow and steady progress there. Still years away from being a reality, but we're moving in the right direction. There's a lot of permitting difficulties there, a lot of land ownership issues there.
We had some
Will that
hurdle.
need treatment also, or we thinking for PFAS and stuff like that, or
It might, yeah.
which means, does that get another like main that runs over Wickham Ave, or how does that work?
No,
No.
that wouldn't be feasible to bring it.
It's not cost feasible. Yeah, bring the water over.
It's just too far away, so it'll have its own separate treatment plant whenever that gets built.
But that the capacity that that area is probably not as high as the other wells we
Right,
have.
right.
We're not gonna get a permit from the state to the levels of our Whitcomb or Spec Pond, for instance. Still decent enough. I mean, we, you know, on the water side, we need a certain minimum amount of withdrawal that we can take to make it feasible, make it cost feasible to build a plant.
What are the numbers that are, the water department puts out that a homeowner would be, would want to be aware of and I'm totally ignorant when it comes to all these numbers that you want to meet for a well. The well has to meet certain criteria, yes? And I assume the town water does also. What numbers that you guys have would be at anywhere elevated that would cause someone any concern about tying into town water and abandoning the well? Anything?
Really nothing at this point. It was PFAS for the past, 5 years. Now that new treatment plant's online, we removed that.
Does that serve the whole town?
Yeah,
Everybody
well,
gets the same,
yeah, everybody gets the
water?
same water essentially. There's really only 2 treatment plants now. There's the Wickham Ave one, the brand new one, and the Beaver Brook treatment plant over here. And they both pump into the same distribution system, just all the pipes are interconnected, so it's all
Okay.
the same mix of water.
there's no reason for one to have, anybody have any issues with tying into town.
No.
Thank you.
So
We
Spec
encourage
Pond does PFAS also?
What's that?
Facility over Spec Pond, does that do PFAS also?
Yeah, well, so that treatment plant was decommissioned. And the water from that well now goes all the way over to Wickham Ave with the
Okay.
transmission main, so it gets treated over at Wickham Ave.
It's just wells and pumping.
So now the surface line running down 119, does that go away soon?
That's going away, yeah.
Okay,
No, yeah, we leased that. We didn't know, we don't own it.
Yeah.
At least we're waiting for the contractor to pull it out.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's no longer in use. It's just
Right.
waiting until the spring for them to do that work.
Well, one final, what were the siltation tanks up on the common for?
Oh, the frac tanks on Stephen Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a little bit of groundwater contamination where they were digging just from historical use, probably from 8 years ago or something. So they had to kind of manage that in a different way than, like, normally if you're just dewatering a trench, getting the groundwater out of it, you can put it wherever, but if it's contaminated water, so it had to be managed through those.
And has that been mediated?
Yeah, it's all done now. They moved the
They
tanks.
moved the
everything's
tanks
done
out.
now.
How much oil did you get?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to. I'd have to look it up.
But that was an extra, right, a change order.
There was an extra cost, though, yeah. It was an unexpected thing.
Yeah. All set? All right, well, thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, everybody online, and LCTV, thank you for broadcasting this. Appreciate it. We'll catch you at the next forum we'll have once construction starts to ramp up again. We'll have another one, probably end of April timeframe, to give updates on both our engineering capacity expansion and construction of the plant.
Time frame? Who's next in line?
Yeah, I mean,
Dates
we're-
for that?
yeah, I mean, again, the thing that's right in front of us now is this extra capacity at the high school to get that permitted up to 241 up to 300 where we'd like to be. But the board is already committed to the fact that extra capacity is going to go to people at the common.
That's in writing?
I don't know. I have to check
We
that
covered
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Town council decides that the meeting didn't count, well, they can just throw that.
Oh.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.